Okay, recording is turned on. Let me share my screen. Okay, so let me know once you all can see my screen. Is it visible? You are able to see my...
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So we'll have a quick recap, okay, what we discussed yesterday. So yesterday, like, we started with cloud basics because we had some folks who were new to cloud. So we started with cloud basics. Then we talked about what is IAC, Terraform, then setup. We saw like how we can do the setup, and then we discussed about different blocks, right? Like in Terraform, like we started with very basic Terraform block and a provider block, which we took from the documentation and we took it and we saw like what is available in that. Then we saw the Terraform workflow. So where we discussed about Terraform commands like Terraform init we did, and then plan, validate, apply we saw, and destroy. So these are the common commands which we will use, and we saw all of those in action. Then I think we saw about a resource block. After that, we saw variables, and I think we also saw the output block. Apart from that, we discussed about loops, like then little bit on variables like data types discussed, and what else? Let's see if I missed anything. So we talked about this length function, and this is where we did that loop and all with count, right? So this and all we did. Maybe I'll quickly go through this code also. We started with this basic code where we just had a Terraform block and a provider block. Then we moved on, and we saw like how we can add a basic resource group. We also in fact talked about life cycle policy. Then we moved on and we saw like how variables can be defined, and how we can pass different ways of supplying variables, how you can pass variables in runtime, how you can give the variables in a file, and what was how on what order it's going to take, what was terraform.tfvars, how it is going to automatically take the values, etc. All those things we saw from the variable perspective. Then we did discuss about output. If you want to print some properties of the resource whatever you have created, we did see about the output block. And then we saw about data types a little bit, like what is a list, how you can iterate and create. We did also see local file resource type, and we were able to create the set of files with this code without dealing with cloud. We just had an example for a local file. Then we took that same concept and implemented something like where we were able to create multiple storage accounts in Azure. Okay, so this is what we saw yesterday. Okay. So any questions, like I just want to ask again before I start the next topic real quick. Any questions from what we covered yesterday? Anything you want me to repeat again? Anyone? Okay, I will take this as a positive response and I'll move. But as I said, you can always stop me, okay? If something has to be repeated. Okay, so this is a different VS code. Okay, I have just named it as day 2. Again, you will be getting this folder. I'll put it in a Git repo and I'll share it. So, and the yesterday scripts also I have linked the Git repo in the YouTube video description. Okay, so which means you have the scripts, whatever we used yesterday, so that you can take that, whatever I showed in this, right? Everything you have. Okay, let's move on. So today, yesterday we talked about one portion of this loop, right? Where like you can have different things with list, and we talked about how you can use a count and iterate it through this block multiple times. Now I'm going to show you something different. Like we also have something called for each loop, okay, in Terraform. So what we'll do is I'll first set the provider block, and what we can do is I'm going to take it from one of the previous code example. So only thing I have to do is I have to update my subscription ID, which I'll do it now. I'll quickly go to my subscription and let's copy this and give this. Okay. So for each, okay, for each loop is nothing but, okay, you will have basically key and the value. Okay, this is how your variable block will be having. So you will have like multiple key and multiple values. You can have key 1, value 1. I can have key 2, value 2. Okay, like any other programming in Python, well, like if you are familiar with the data type map. Okay, so I wouldn't say map, it can be okay, I think I missed it. It should be map or dict. Okay, something where you will have this key value combination. So it's like it will be like that. Okay, so in your variable block, let's start with variable block. Okay, I'll say, okay, wait. Okay, now it is detecting. So let's say I want to create a resource group. Okay, but not like this. I'll say this is going to be a map of string. Okay, wait. And here I will say my default as it will be like how I'm going to define is, let's say I'm going to create a resource group for dev, and this will be on East US. Then I want to create a resource group for test. Again, all these are like just an assumption. Okay, so in real time you can just think of some scenario where it could be like you're setting up a DR instance, like where you want to segregate one environment with other. Like if you want to have that in a single code, so you can define something like this. In my example, just to keep it simple, just to explain you the actual concept, I'm picking something like this. Okay, but the actual use case, it can be like, it depends on our need. What Whenever you need to pass in this kind of input, you can do it. So if you see, this is a key and this is a value. Okay, you have three entries here. Okay, now I'll show you like how you can iterate this to a resource block. Okay, will directly location, I'll just hard code it. I mean, location will be picking it from here. So basically we have to pick a resource group name, and this dev should create an East US, test should be on West US, prod will be on South India. Okay, so what we will do is I'll say Azure resource group. Let's type Azure RM resource group, and I'll just name it as RG name. Now, if you see here, okay, you have a function called like this option called for each. Okay, what this will do is I'm going to do a loop for each of elements inside this block variable, whatever I have defined. Okay, so then like what will happen? So I need name. So name will be coming from each dot key. Okay, as I said, whatever you see on the left side is a key, whatever you see on the right side is a value, right? So so I'm going to iterate like this as a value key here, and location will be the value. now if I if I have to represent location, I'll just say location and each value. Okay, and that's how you can just write a simple uh, code. This will create 3 different resource group. Okay, and let's quickly see. I'll do 01. Let's do Terraform init, because that is something we have to initialize it. It's going to download the providers. And I'll also quickly show you the portal just to see what all entries we have. Okay, I have only 2 resource group. So yeah, these are the 2 resource groups I have as of now. So I'm going to directly run Terraform apply. Okay, just to clear. And I'll say auto approve so that I don't have to press enter or give yes in a prompt. So I'm going to directly do auto approve. Let's wait for this to initiate the process, and let's see. It is started. Yeah. So if you see, plan is to create 3 groups, and if you see, right, this is first block where it is taking RG dev and location is East US, then RG prod South India, RG test West US. That's what it is going to do, and it has started creating the resource group. So it should not take much time since it is just a resource group. It should be done in few seconds. Let's wait for this. Okay, let's check here. Okay, if you see, right, as per like whatever we have mentioned, this has created the resource. Okay, so RG prod is on South India, RG test West US, and other one on East US. Okay, this is another way, like where you can use for each group. Similarly, like you can also think about like any scenario. Okay, it could be like you could have configurations like your VM name, VM size, anything you can define basically in a single variable and call that inside your code. Okay, so it all depends on like what is going to be our use case and how you want to put your code. Okay, I just want to show you this option is also available. Okay, so I'll go ahead and destroy. So after this, right, so what I want to show you is next, let's say so far whatever we have done is we have created a resource group and then made use of that resource group and created a underneath resource. Like for example, if you take the yesterday's example, right, we created a storage account yesterday, and before that, like we had to let me probably show you the code, like what we did. So if you look at this code, we created a resource group, and then that resource group details was provided to the storage account. But think about a scenario. Okay, let's say you already have a resource group which is created in Azure. Okay, or you think it's not only Azure. Let's take AWS as well. Okay, let's say you already have some resource which is created, but you want to use that resource in your Terraform code. Okay, so that is when you will use something called data block. Okay, data block is nothing but like if you want to query your existing resource in your cloud, okay, and use that data within your code, you will be using something called data block. Okay, so I'll create a new folder saying 02 demo and we'll see data block. This is a new block, okay, which we haven't seen so far. So I'll copy this. Probably we'll take this code also, and I'll just remove this. We'll just keep one value. Okay, I'll remove the whole. Okay, because we want to reference. Okay, what I'm going to do is let's do something like I'll refresh. So let's say we have this resource group, right? TF data source. Okay, I'll just put it here. So what we are going to do is like let's say this time I want to create a virtual network. Okay, so you can put data block like this, and say Azure RM, and we can say this is going to be resource group. And here, since we already know our resource group, substitute this. Okay, so you should supply like this. So what will happen is, as soon as you put something like this, okay, let's say MC RG data block. I'll just name this is a logical name, right? So I'll show you like what details we get. You all know with output block we can fetch the details of this resource group information, right? Since now think of like we are querying this data, okay? But if you want to see what all data is available for us to use, I'm just using the output block to print RG. I'll just say this can be any name, okay? I'm just giving print RG details, and what I will do is, so I'll print all just to show you like what details we get, and then we are going to reference this data block in our virtual network. Okay, before I do that, I'll quickly show you like how you can I mean what all data you get. So I'll do Terraform init. So this is a data block this can be any resource. Okay, in this example I'm taking resource group. It could be your virtual network, or it could be your VM, or it could be your storage account, anything. So probably I'll go to the documentation thing, and let's look at this data source. So you'll have a separate section for data source, which will tell you like what all things you can get. Okay, so these are the different attributes which you will get. Okay, so for example, in this data block, okay, your resource group name is a required field attribute which we have supplied here. Okay, and now I'm just dumping. So here I'm referencing this data block. If you see data dot Azure RM resource group and then RG data block. Okay, and star is nothing but I want to print everything. So in this case, we'll get all these things. Okay, we'll get ID, location, tag, and name is something which we already know. So let's do Terraform apply auto approve. Okay, wait, there is a typo. This should print the details about this resource group in specific. Okay, we'll see. And then we are going to use the information from this blog to create our virtual network. Okay, if you see, these are the details it is giving. Okay, let's wait for this will not make any change. It's just we are dumping this data, that's it. So I think yeah, it was just stuck, so I just canceled it. So we'll move on. Okay, but I just want to show you, okay, what all details you get. Now what we will do is, again I'll write a resource block, and let's say Azure RM. This time we'll go for virtual network. Okay, and I'll say my vnet. Again, this is not a resource name, it is just a block label name we are giving. Okay, and this is where you will define your vnet name. Okay, let it be like, I'll just say my vnet, and here you will be defining the CIDR block, like what is going to be my network range. Okay, and then if you see, okay, because of Copilot I'm getting this suggestion. Okay, so see how the reference is being made. So we are using data block and then the resource group, then the block label whatever we have defined, and we are taking the location. Similarly, you can also do the same for resource group name. Okay, so you can pull it from the data block and get it. So that's all. These are the mandatory details which I need to create a virtual network. So what I can do is, I will, if I do Terraform apply, right? Now this will go and create a virtual network with this address space inside this resource group. Okay, let's see, like we have applied that option. Probably we'll just wait for few more seconds for this to create the virtual network. And in real time, right, you will see, okay, what they will do is usually if they want to query the data block and all, right, like let's say you have AMIs, right, you will build custom AMIs or machine images. So they will be able to query the latest image which is available in your image gallery and use the latest without hard coding the image thing. With this data block, you will be able to add additional filters and query the latest AMI and all. Like this, you can have a number of use case. So in some companies, they will not create the VNet manually. They want to use the existing virtual network. So in that case, you will use this data block to query your VNet. So if you see, this is a VNet we created. And this is the address space which we have allocated, which you see here. Okay, that is what we did with this code. Any questions? Are we good?
Navin.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. So we'll move on then. So this is about data block. Okay, I think I don't need this. Well, let me destroy this. Okay. So now we saw a data block, which is something new. Now think about a scenario. Okay. Let me just create a new folder so that let's say demo, and we'll copy this and this. So in main, let me remove all. Let's say I'll just say this is still going on. Okay. Okay. So let's say this is our. I'll just name it as TFRG demo. Okay, I just want to give some name. So what we're going to see is, okay, I want to show you like what would happen if we mess up with state file, right? So let me go back and we'll go to 03 Terraform init. Okay, and just initialize. It's a very simple code we have. It's going to create a resource group, and this is group name, and that's it. Nothing fancy here, right? What we will do is I'm just going to do Terraform apply auto approve. So this will create the resource group, and like yesterday we talked about some of the files which gets created. So for example, your .terraform will have your provider which gets downloaded, and this lock.hcl will have your hashes signed by HashiCorp for the provider, and you also get this file, okay, which will get disappeared as soon as the resource gets created. Okay, if you see right now, this is having some details. It says like it is from which desktop, what version, created, path, Terraform TF state, and what else. Operational type is info. Example, like this is just giving having some details. Right now, this will go. I just want this to complete so that, okay, if you see now that file is gone. If you see there is a red mark, right? This is gone. Now if you see, we have TF state file. Okay, and yesterday we did discuss some information about this TF state file, but we'll quickly revisit this. So this TF state file is going to have all the sensitive data. Okay, so if you see, like it will represent what is your current state when you apply this code. Okay, and if you see, this is the resource group name we created, and it has all the other attributes. And for now we just have resource group, that's why it has. Now just see, okay, right now let's go here. It is in east US. Let's say I want this resource group to be on south South India, right? And I've saved this. Now let's do the apply again. No, now if you see, this time, if you want to change the location of the resource group, it has to destroy this resource group first, and then only it will be able to update the location. Same as in portal. Okay, in portal, do you think like we'll be able to change the resource group location? I don't think you will be able to directly update the this thing location. Okay, same goes with Terraform. So here also it is going to be, see, it must be replaced. Okay, it cannot do in place update. So whereas it's going to destroy and then create the replacement. That's what this says. Now let's wait for this to finish. Okay, I just want to show you one thing, what happens when we do something like this. Let's wait for this to finish. Okay, it is doing the destruction completed, then it is doing a create. And now if you see, we got one more file, tf state.backup, right? And we also have something called tf state. So if you go to tf state, let's see, we changed location. Okay, and this says tf state represents the current state. Okay, the current state is South India, but you have something called tf backup. Okay, let's see what is available here. Here if you say, it says the location is east us, which is our previous one, right? So what happens is with Terraform, if you are doing any change, okay, so this previous state Terraform state file backup will be automatically available here, just one step. Okay, you'll just have one step back, and you'll have tf state with current state. And if at all, if you want to roll back to the previous state, right? Like again, like you can make use, if you want to see what was the previous state, you can refer this backup. Okay, now assume I delete these two tf state file. Okay, probably before even I delete it, I'll show you one more command. Okay, so we have a command called terraform state. Okay, let's do help. Okay, wait, terraform state help. So with state, you can give pass in certain parameters. Okay, let's say I'll do terraform list missing block definition. Okay, I have missed something. Okay, so if you see, it queries our state file and gives us this details, right? Let me do clear screen. Okay, so right now we just have one resource. Okay, this is coming from our state file. Okay, now let's say I delete these two files. Okay, now if we run, it says no state file found. Okay, Terraform now has no details about the resource, whatever we have created here. Okay, I just deleted the state file. Now if I do Terraform apply again, okay, let's see what is going to happen. We lost the state file because Terraform state file is the one which is going to keep track of our details. But what we did, we deleted the state file. And now see what Terraform is trying to do. Since state file is not there, it is going to try and create this resource. And this creation is going to fail because we already have a resource group which is already created. I think I didn't destroy that resource group. This resource group is still here, right? So let's see. You see, right? We got a error message saying this resource group already exists. Okay, and it says to manage this resource via Terraform, we have to do something different. Okay, so you have, it says you have to import into the state. Okay, so now the scenario is like, think of like in this case I intentionally deleted it, okay, for you to explain the importance of state file. But now if you go into the state file, we don't have any details. Terraform doesn't know what is there. Now the scenario is like you have some resource on cloud. Okay, I think yesterday someone asked this question. Let's say I have some resource in Azure and I want to onboard that resource into Terraform, right? So that's the scenario. Right now we have a resource group, okay, which is this one, but this is not managed by Terraform. I don't have anything. My state file is not having any details, but I just have my code. This code we can write, right? Let's say I am going to onboard this resource group, okay, and I know like I have to supply these details, which I can get it from the portal as well. So in the portal I have all the details about this resource. In order to onboard your resource group, you need to have certain details in place. These are the two mandatory fields, okay. But when it comes to import, right, so you have to do something extra, okay. So what I will do is, here we can do Terraform import, okay, and maybe like I'll also change, because Terraform have no idea, right? Just to show you I'm not dependent on this code, what I'll do is I'll even change this block name, okay. I'll just say import, just to tell you like this is like a new code which we have written, okay. I changed the name also. Whatever we had earlier is removed. Now I'm going to reference this block and we are going to do an import, okay. And with this block I have to supply something called the resource id, okay. Maybe what I will do is I'll also show you the documentation page. Let's go here. We should be seeing something for import. Okay, like this in the documentation you will have an example, okay, for all the resources if you want to onboard them. So in this case I am going to do something like this. So this will be my Azure resource group, this will be my block name, which is this one, rg name underscore import, and this will be my id, okay. In Azure it will be like subscription, your subscription id, then your resource group, what type of resource it is, and the respective resource. So that details you can get it from here, and I'll just put it here just for your reference. So if you see, this is our subscription ID and this is a resource group and this is the resource group name. I'll just copy this whole and I'll put it here. Okay, now enter. Now what this is going to do is, this is going to onboard my resource, which is our tf rg underscore demo resource group, and it will onboard that resource into this Terraform, and then from here we'll be able to manage that resource. Now if you see Azure resource group, this import prepared, and for import is successful. Now if I run that Terraform state list command, right, this should be able to give our resource, okay. Since we named the block name as rg underscore name import, that's why it shows like that. Now if you see backup is empty because our previous state we were not having anything. And in this case, now if you see, you have the resource group details South India, and this is our resource group name, okay. This is how you can onboard a resource. So I showed you with a simple example, but if you take any other example, right, so maybe in the previous demo we did for virtual network. Let's take virtual network, and I'll just quickly show you in the documentation like how this import uh, block will look like, to show you like how you can find the details yourself, right, from the documentation. So let's copy this and put it. So for importing a virtual network, this is the details you will give, and you are going to pick this virtual network ID, okay, this resource ID, and put it. But you should also have that block, okay, whatever is the mandatory field, okay, like how we did for the resource group, you have to just have the template available, okay. Once you have the template, you will be referencing those blocks and tell, okay, this is my resource ID. Now import this whole thing into my Terraform. So that is how you will be able to onboard a resource into Terraform from your cloud, which you have already created. Okay, this is about the Terraform import. Any questions? Are we good?
Good, good.
Okay, okay, fine. Then in that case, we will move on. The next topic which I wanted to show you is, now we know that Terraform state file is important, right? So having it locally, okay, on our server is not a good idea, definitely. Okay, there should be a better way to handle this state file, because if someone goes and edit it or deletes this file mistakenly, right, gone, your whole setup is screwed up. Again, you have to do a lot of other things to get things back on track, right? So Terraform has a option like where you can have this state file in a remote backend. Okay, when I say remote backend, it could be your S3 bucket or your Azure storage container. Okay, so that is something which you will add in your Terraform block. Okay, maybe what we will do is we'll again we'll revisit the documentation thing. Terraform backend. So there are various backends which are supported. So this is how your backend will look. Maybe let's pick some example. You will define basically like you will have your cloud bucket, okay, your storage bucket, and what is the container name and what is going to be your state file, you will define. So after that, your state file gets stored in your backend. Again, these configurations can be supplied when you initialize the Terraform as well. Okay, so you can also have this. This is how, like, if you are doing any automation where you want to handle it in large scale, right? All these things will be passed in with a variable, and they'll initialize it during the initialize time itself. All these things will be provided. Okay, now we'll see like how we can make use of it. I'll quickly go to the portal and I will show you which bucket we are going to use. So I have this TF data source resource group, right? I already have a storage account in place. Okay, so this is going to be our storage account. Probably what I will do is I'll get all these details in our code. Let's say for now I'll just remove this. Okay, and wait, did I? Okay, so I'll say Terraform, and this time it's going to be like, we'll say backend, and in our case backend is Azure RM. Okay, and let's supply these details. So these are the details which you have to fill. Okay, resource group name, storage account name, container name, and key. And in our case, resource group name is this, and our storage account name, we have it here. So I'll take that, and then container. So let's go here. I think I already have a container called TF state. Maybe I'll use this. Let's see what if I have anything inside this. So there is no file which is available. So I'll use TF state. And this is going to be our TF state file name. Okay. And this can be any name. For now, I'll leave it as Terraform .tf state. Okay. And here we'll keep these things as it is. Probably I'll remove this. This is not needed. Okay. And subscription ID is something which we want. And here let it be like probably, okay, we already have this resource group. I'll just say rg underscore import. Okay, and let me switch back to 04 and we'll do Terraform init. So now if you remember, like in the initial yesterday, okay, when we discussed about this Terraform init, I told initialize backend. Okay, I think you would have seen this message when we ran the command for first time. So this time during the initialize backend, it is going to initialize the backend, which is our Azure storage account. So if you see, state file is already created here. Okay, and that's what it says. It says like successfully configured the backend Azure RM. Terraform will automatically use this backend unless backend configuration changes. Okay, now our whole configuration is backed with Azure storage account. Okay, and that's why you don't see any state file here, and you just see this provider download and that log file. That's all. So you don't see the state file here as well. And let's do apply, and I'll say auto approve. Now, okay, let this finish. Okay, I'll tell you, like I want to show you one more thing in this. We'll just wait for a few more seconds for this to complete, and then what I'm going to do is we are going to change this location to some other um, region. Okay, so maybe we'll change this to Central India. Okay, and that's another location we have, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this once this is applied. And if you remember, we did discuss about um, TF state backup file, okay, which we saw. So I just want to show you like what happens to that as well. Let this finish. Okay. So now if you see, right, you will see acquiring state log, okay, because it has to talk to Azure and it has to place a log. Then if you see the last message, it says releasing state log. So as soon as it has done the changes, you can think of like if you're from the database background, right, like think about it like a transaction making changes to your table where it's going to place a lock. Let's say it's going to modify all data and then release the lock, right? Something like that happens at the backend. Now let's change this. Okay, I'll just say Central India. Apply this, and this is going to update a resource. Okay, again it says acquiring state log. Okay, and this will do the changes. Okay, now the question is, okay, how many of you think now we are going to see a new file in this container? You can just say, raise your hand if you feel now we are going to have a new bucket or new file saying Terraform TF state backup. Okay, one, two. Anyone else? Just give a random guess. Nothing like it should be either yes or no. So whoever is hasn't raised, like you feel like will not have any file, is it? It will not create, I guess. Okay. I mean, why do you think like that? Any guess like or why you thought like that? We already has one old state, but I have only one file, right? Where is the backup file? You remember in the old demo, whenever we did change, I told you like it's going to have the previous state in our backup file, right? So here we just have only one file. Where is my backup file in this case? Any guess? By the way, let's see if our resource got changed. Yeah, it got changed. There is a clue in this window. You can just look at the details, what you see here.
It will version.
Sorry?
It will create a version.
Okay.
It is version level immunity is disabled.
Yeah, so we do have versioning enabled. Okay. So if you see, right, that's the advantage you get if you are having this with the backend. And if you see, like, I think this is the latest one. This is the previous backup file which we had. Okay. So if you are going with the, is there any message? Okay. So if you're going with backend configuration, right, with cloud buckets, you will be having this versioning functionality which Terraform leverages, and that's how you can handle it. Okay. So that's why you don't see a separate backup file. Right? Are we good? Okay. Fine. So then we'll move on. Okay. So this is one important thing. Okay. This is how you can have a remote backend for your code. Now, yesterday in one of the demo, there was a question. Okay. We saw a concept where we were using this TF-var files, okay, and probably I'll use the same code. For example, maybe let me take this whole thing and I'll create a separate folder and paste it. And I don't think we need this, so I have TF-var for prod and dev, and this is going to be our variable. And if I go to main, we are just creating a resource group. That's it. Okay. So yesterday when we did this demo, right, there was a question. Okay, when we had to apply. Okay, so let's say I do Terraform init as a very first thing, right? And this time it's, I mean, we're not using a remote backend for now. Okay, but it's a local thing. That's why you will have the state file getting here created here. But I want to discuss something else here. So here in our case, we have two different variables, right? And if I want to do like Terraform apply var file equal to dev dot tf vars, I'll do something like this. So now this is going to take the values of this dev resource group name. Okay, it says provider subscription ID. Okay, I have to update the subscription ID. Let me quickly do that. Will do. Okay. Now we are applying this. I told like this is one way where you can supply the variables. You can put it in a separate file. For example, dev parameters in one file and prod related TFRs in a separate file and use it, right? So, okay, I should have used auto approve, but that's fine. Now, once this configuration is applied, right? So with the current setup, if I want to apply prod, then Terraform is going to destroy my dev and then apply whatever configuration we have in prod and keep it, right? So this is something which we discussed yesterday. And I told like we are going to discuss a concept called workspace. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you now. like how you can make use of workspace and manage both dev and prod with the same code. Okay, with the current code whatever we have, right, I cannot do that. For example, now if I go and check the resource groups, let's see, I'll have dev rg, right, which we just created. Now if I change this prod, instead of apply, I'll just do plan, because we don't want to apply. I just want to see the plan, what is going to happen. And probably after that, I'll destroy it, because we are going to manage these two things from this same code. Okay, that's the whole objective. We have something called Terraform workspace. Okay, and using that, we'll see like how this can be managed. Now if you see, it says one to add and one to destroy, which we don't want. I want to have both prod and dev rg managed with the same code. Okay, what we will do is we will destroy whatever we have created, because we want to manage it in a different way. And I will also say auto approve, so that this will get deleted. And okay, anyways, I need the terminal to explain you the workspace thing. Let's wait for this to finish. So you can think of workspace is like something like a virtual environment. Okay, or if you're familiarized with the version controlling concepts and all, right, you will have this branching things and all which people do. So you will have different branches which you can create. Let's say if you have a, if you do git in it, like you'll have a default branch, and then you can create multiple branch out of your main branch and work on a different branch, make changes to that branch and push that code, right? Something similar, you can do it with Terraform workspace. Okay, just to get some imagination, I just use this example, but once this is done, I'll show it to you here how you can do it. Let's wait for this to finish. Okay, this is done. What we can do is we can do something like Terraform workspace list. Okay, so by default you have this default workspace. Okay, that's what you see here. By the way, this, okay, I'm asking this after a long time, but I should have asked this before. The font size is okay, right? You all can see what I'm typing and what is the output. Or
Yeah, yes.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. Okay, so now we know like there is a default workspace, but we don't want to use that. Now I want to create a new workspace. Let's see what all help options you have. So in Terraform, whenever you want to explore help option, you can just type the command and say hyphen help. And by looking at this, we know like new is going to create a new workspace. What I will do is Terraform workspace new, and probably I'll say dev. And let's run this Terraform list again. Now, if you see, we have switched to dev workspace. Okay. Initially, this star asterisk was with default, but now it is switched to dev. And we'll also create a new workspace for prod. Okay. And if I do Terraform workspace list, we have now it is switched to prod. So how you can switch workspaces? So far we were creating workspace and switching, right? You can do select and you can say dev. Okay, this will go to switch to dev. Probably if I now show you the list, now you can see we are in dev workspace. So hereafter it's going to be the same thing. Like I'll quickly, I can do okay, this is already destroyed. Let me apply. Now we are in dev workspace. Okay, and I am applying this configuration. Let's see, like you'll see something different with the state file. Okay. Already there is something different. Did you guys observe like what is special we have in this folder compared to this? Maybe you can compare it with the above one, because the previous one was a remote state file. Do you see something here different with the state file, at least visually?
.t folder is added.
Right. Yeah, you have something called .d, right? Yeah, we'll see what is inside that, right? Now, what I will do is I will switch my workspace to prod, and from here I can apply the prod config as well. Okay, which means with the same code, I'm managing two different environments, your prod environment and dev environment as well. Okay, you can think of this in real time, like you can have I mean, each company will have their own way of segregating the environment, right? So you can think of managing multiple environments with same code with this using the workspace concept. So while that is getting created, let's expand this TF state file. Now if you see, we have separate folders depending on whatever workspace you have created. So my dev folder is going to have dev workspace, I mean dev state file. If you see here, you'll see this dev rg, and my prod will have, okay, this is still getting prepared, that's why it didn't allow us to open it. Okay, now we should be able to open. If you see, this is for prod rg. So this is how with workspace concept, you will be able to use this multiple configuration files and manage it. But you have to be very careful, because if you are in deploying resource in wrong workspace and all, that might create mess. So that is something you have to pay a close attention. Now, let's say I want to delete a workspace. Okay, what we will do is we'll do list. Okay, right now I'm in prod. Okay, and let's say I'm going to delete prod. This will not work, because it's like, you can think of again in a database term. If you have an active transaction in your database, if the database is in use, you will not be able to delete it. Same goes with this. We are in prod workspace already, and you are trying to do a delete, which is not going to work. Okay, before that, I'll quickly check if we have the resource. Yeah, dev and prod, right? What we will do is, okay, let's say now I'm in prod. Okay, I mean, so that's why I cannot delete it. Now let's say I want to delete my dev workspace. Still, this will not work, because it says your workspace is not empty, because it knows you are managing a resource, right? But you see an option, you can do -force, right? Wait, what did I do? I don't know if I'm giving it option to disable this safety check. Okay, wait, maybe I might be giving the command wrong. Let's check. Because I also couldn't recollect the actual force command, if we can do it, but let's see if I can get an example. Force delete. Maybe this will see it, because I thought of showing, okay, what could happen if you forcefully delete a workspace, to see if it is going to delete your actual resource in the portal, because that will not happen, and this will just be as it is. Okay, so that's what I thought of showing. But let's see, let's probably what I will do is, we are in prod, right? I will destroy the prod resource first, and then we'll switch to dev. Destroy, and then we'll switch to dev, and then I'll show you like deletion of this prod workspace. Okay, because I don't know on which version I tested, because I don't know if it was an older one. I was trying to delete and do some testing, like what was the behavior, but I couldn't show it now. I'll see what is that. Let's wait for this to finish, and after this, we'll delete the workspace. Okay, it says 0 to add, 0 to change, 1 to destroy. That is what we wanted to do. We'll wait for few more seconds. Okay, should be done. Okay, this is done. Now let's switch to dev, and now let's delete our product. Okay, now we are able to delete it. That's how you can create, deploy resource in a specific workspace, and you can also delete it if once the complete cleanup is done. Okay, this is about the workspace concept. Any questions? Yes, no, any?
If provider init with cloud, then it will store that .d file in cloud, correct?
Yes. If it is a remote backend, yeah, all these things will be handled. So you're talking about having workspace and remote backend, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, let's do that also. Okay, I can definitely show it. I'll say 06 demo, and we will copy all these things because it's going to be same, and we'll take the remote backend from here. So we'll do a change. What I will do is, just to show you, I'll create a new container inside the same storage account. So we will use this container. Okay. And okay, so this is my storage account. This is the remote thing. I'll switch to 06. Let's do Terraform init. So it is initializing our backend. So we should be seeing a file here. Yeah, you see it. So once this is done, we'll create our workspace as well. Okay, now Terraform workspace create dev. Okay, sorry. It should be new. Okay, I don't know why it is taking time. Okay, you see, right?
Yeah.
Is creating dev. Okay, now similarly, if I do prod, it's going to create another state file here, and that's how it managed. So with this naming convention, it will be able to identify which state file belongs to which workspace.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I think the other process will remain same. Okay, this will have its own versioning, the prod will have its own versioning, and the rest all remain same. Okay, but this is how
Okay.
this will be managed. Okay.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, fine. So then I think I wanted to discuss about modules. Okay, so we'll take a 5 minutes break probably. So I just want to, I mean, modules is the last thing. Then I will show you some examples of combining like the whole code. So far, like why I didn't include other resources. Now, if you see, for just resource group itself, for us to deploy and destroy, do R&D, it was taking some time, right? But if you think about imagining creating multiple VMs and showing that demo, that will be nice. But at least for the initial part, for you to explain the core concepts, I thought we'll not do that. That's why I have a separate thing where we'll talk about like how you can have multiple resource and other things. I have it here, which we'll see at the end after discussing about modules. Okay, those are the two things which are pending. We'll take a 5 minutes break, or we'll again resume at 10:15. Is that okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Anyways, like I'll be here. If you guys have any questions or anything, we can discuss.
We can switch back to default workspace also, correct?
Yes. Since I have it here, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And if we do list, it should show default as your current workspace. You see?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, recording is started. So now I'll create a separate folder, and this time, so we are going to discuss a different concept called modules. Okay, so modules, you can think of something like what I can say is like a function in Python, like where you define a set of things, or in PowerShell also you will have this modules, right, which can do certain set of functions which you will define inside your module. Okay, something like that. So so far whatever we have written here, we had to define all the resource block here and call the variables, etc. But with modules, it's going to reduce our code repeatability. Okay. For example, okay. So again, we will have different flavors. Okay. The first example which I'm going to show you will have a module which is going to sit on our local folder. Okay. Then we'll have this same module which is going to sit in our version control system remotely, and we will see like how you can call it from your Terraform code. Okay. So what we can do is I'll say a module. Okay. And here I'll create something called RG. Okay. And probably I'll have a separate module for VNet. Okay. And this demo here, just think of like I'll have my main file here. Okay. Whatever I'm going to put in the actual code, but my actual core components will be sitting inside this modules folder. So when you write the modules, right, everything should be parameterized, whatever you want to call it in the main. Maybe once I write the code, you'll get to know. For now, what I will do is I'll just say variable.tf and main.tf. So I'll say resource, and let's say Azure resource group. We will call this from variable, and similarly location also I'll just say 1. And what I'll do is I'll just put this, and we'll say I'm not going to pass any defaults, and I'll also define a variable for location. Okay. And let's close this. Now it's the same resource group block. Okay. But it is in a different folder. I have a separate folder for my resource group. And now let's say here I want to create my VNet. Okay. And similarly, I'll have a different variable.tf here. And let's say resource, and Azure RM virtual network. These are the variables which we have to declare. Okay. So right now, if you see, I told like whatever Terraform code we write, right, it will be local to that folder. In this case, RG is a separate folder. Now, if you see, I cannot reference a value which is defined here in a different folder. Okay. So for that, here I have to anyways reference the resource group name, location, and all, which I'll just have a dummy thing. I'll copy the same thing and I will put it in this variable. Okay. And for VNet name, we'll add that also. At the end, you should have all the variables defined. Let's say if you're writing a module, right, you have to define all the names, whatever is defined in a different place also, you have to define that. And I think we are missing the address space one. What I will do is wait. Okay, this is for address space. Now, if you see for RG, these are the input parameters which we have to do pass, and we have created the variable. VNet is in a different folder. Okay. In our previous demo, we saw like what are the mandatory fields. These are the mandatory arguments which we have to supply. And since it is in a separate folder, I have to again just declare a dummy variable, though I'm not going to reference it directly here, but I have to reference in this code so that I have a reference for this variable in a separate file. Now, so far, if we go back to this thing, right, like we have seen different blocks, right, in Terraform code. Right now, we are going to see a new block called module block. Okay, this is going to be a different block, and let's see how you can call it. So I'll define a module. Okay, and let's say this is for prod. or let's say this is for dev. Okay, and what I can do is, or I'll say dev RG. Okay, because I'm going to create a resource group, and I am also going to create a virtual network in that resource group. Okay, now I'll say module dev vnet, and I'm going to supply the address name and location and this. Now the key part here is, okay, if you see, we have something called source. Okay, this is the only code we have in this pain.tf. Along with this, I should also have the provider. Let me just copy this provider. Okay, probably we'll use this one with a remote backend. I will just add provider.tf, paste it, and I'll say probably we'll give a different name, module.tf step. Okay, going back to this code, right? Now, these are the variables which we have defined in this file, rg underscore name one location one. Okay. Now, if you see rg underscore name one location one, and this is going to be my dev rg, and location is east US. Similarly, for vnet, okay, we have defined certain variables. Now, I am referencing those variables here. But if you see, okay, location is correct. VNet name is something which we define. Address is something which I am going to give like 15.0.0/16. Okay. Location, it is taking from module of dev rg and location one. Similarly, resource group name, we are referencing from this. So I told you directly you cannot reference. Okay. That's why in this module block we are doing a reference with this. Okay. Let's try and apply. Okay, we'll see how it goes. Terraform init. So this is going to initialize the backend. We will have to wait for this to initialize. See which bucket I'm using, remote, the same bucket only, right? Okay. Okay, module.tf, it has initialized and it's doing the other configuration. So right now, this module folder is in our local. Okay, that's why you might feel, okay, we just have it in a different folder we are referencing. But we can completely exclude this folder from our whole setup. Okay, so right now, if you see, we are using remote backend. There is something called modules also, which we have. And on top of that, like now we just have this simple piece of code which has our values. Okay, and now if I do Terraform apply, or we'll do, okay, yeah, let's do apply only. Auto. Okay, we might have all these resource groups, right? I don't know if I have deleted it. So I'll just name it as RG1 and VNet1. Okay, and I'll say apply. And wait, my bad. Let's see what is going to happen. Now, you see, right, our code is completely now down to just few lines. Okay, I don't have to write anything about my module. Okay, so now if you see, this has given an error. Okay, this is something we have to see why this is happening. Now if you see, it says unsupported attribute. Okay, and it is referring to main.tf location one module does. Okay, it is not able to recognize this attribute. Okay, and if you see, the other attribute which it is not able to recognize is rg name, which is these two things. So why this is happening is, okay, as I told you, in module block, okay, we are just defining the variables here, but you need to have an output block defined, which is going to expose what details are directly from this module. I cannot, I mean, from VNet module, I cannot access the module block, resource group module block data, okay, because I'm not exposing that in an output block. If you remember, in output block, we used to expose it, right? But here, if you see, we are not doing that, okay. That's why we are actually getting these errors, and it says like I'm not able to get that reference in this. So what we have to do is, like, we have to, I mean, expose this data in an output block, which probably we can do it here. And I'll just say rg name output. Similarly, we will also expose the location, okay. Now here, what we have to do is, we will reference it from the output block, okay, because in our actual module code we have written, okay, these values can be exposed, okay, and that is how we are able to consume that data. Now let's try to apply, and we'll see like how this one goes. So I'll again repeat it, okay. This might be a little bit confusing, but it is easy once you understand that logic. So initially, while this is going on, right? So let's say we have this modules in the separate folder. In this case, since it is on the same folder, I mean, within this, I have a subfolder. That's why it is represented as dot modules vnet. Okay, but in real time, you will have all these things in a remote location. Okay, just for a demo purpose, just to get you introduced to this concept, I'm just having it locally. And like this, you can have multiple components. Like what people will do is, they'll write modules for each component. Let's say you have you're dealing with virtual machine databases, they'll have modules for each component depending on whatever is required. In the main TF, they will be using those modules whatever is needed for that specific application stack, and the code will be written in that aspect, okay. And whatever data you want to reference in a different module, you have to define an output block separately, like how we did it, right? So this output block data only you will be referencing in your other modules which you use. So in this case, initially I just showed like what happens if you directly call it from the module block, if without having the output data. But that is not going to work. As you also saw the error message, it will not have any reference, okay. Directly you cannot refer it. That's why you have to define the output block and have it referenced here, okay. Now if I go to the portal, let's refresh. Maybe we want this rg1, right? If you go here, it will have a vnet, okay. That's how with module, okay. Right now we have it local. Now we are going to do a similar thing with a remote location. For that, let me go to my GitHub. Let's see. I need to see what is the repo name. Let's see. I'll just search for module. Okay, this should be the repo which we can use. I'll quickly show you the code what I have. Okay, it is the same thing. Okay, but I've kept it simple. Okay, in this case, if you see, I have a repo called Terraform module, and inside that I have resource.tf, which is this, and I have a variable.tf. Okay, which is, you are very familiar with these two codes. So we are just having a variable location and resource. So what I'm going to do is, I will take this copy Okay, probably this. Let me see which format we are getting this. Okay, this is how we are getting, right? Now, let me go back to VS Code. I'm going to create a new folder. Okay, I'll just say 08 demo. And now look at the code. Like I'll just have main.tf and provider.tf. I'll just put this repo here just for my reference, and I will copy this provider. Okay, and let's navigate to 08. I'll clear it. I'll do Terraform in. Okay, before I do, let's finish the code part as well, right? So right now it is the same. Okay, module. I'll just say remote just to differentiate. Okay, we are using a backend, okay, as our for the state file, and rest all is same. I'm just having my provider file and main file. Now I'll show you like how you can reference the module which is in our remote location. Okay, I'll just say rg creation and source. If you are referencing a git source, right, you have to put something like this. Okay, and paste the repo link. Okay, and finish this. So in this case, I have my files in this same location. I'm referencing like this, and after that, it's all going to be the same thing. If I go here, what variables I have? So I have rg hyphen name, right? I'll define that, and I'll say remote rg, or I'll just say remote module rg, and what we have defined for location, rg location. Let it be South India. Okay. Now, if you see, compared to our code, whatever we have written in the past, right, having multiple files here and there, etc. Now our code is much more simplified. So, like this, I can have multiple modules. Okay, all I have to do is like I have to give what is the source, okay, and what are the attributes or the variables which is needed for this module, and that's it. We are done. Let's do Terraform init. Okay, and it is going to initialize the backend. Will not have much of files here. Okay, just directly we are calling the module, and it's going to take this as a reference from the remote and do the work. Okay, we will quickly see how this is happening.
In real time, this is how the approved modules the administrator can use only with variables and values.
Sorry, can you please repeat your question?
What I'm asking is, in the real time, the approved modules will be there in GitHub or GitLab. The admin can go ahead and use this model in the same way you explain now, with values and keys only varied.
Yeah, so in real time, right, basically you will have all these modules written by your engineers, okay, which will be in your private repo, depending on which version control system you're using. It could be like Azure DevOps repo, or it could be GitLab or GitHub, depending on which one you're using. And it's going to be your own engineers who will be writing that module, okay, and they will know which one to be used. And at the end, this is all done for better code reusability, okay, because here I don't have to write a separate code for resource group, right? If I have something like this, so all people will do is just have this main.tf and write it. So, I mean, did this answer your question, or your question is something different?
Yeah, that answered my question. Yes, the admin only use this, create this module and use to avoid the repeat of writing the same code again.
Right. So in this case, right, on the repo which I have is public. Okay. In case of real time, it will be a private repo where you can authenticate with the PAD token or whatever of SSH which you have. So basically, they'll have the authentication configured from the CACD machines, which we discussed yesterday, right? So they'll have the environment variables and authentication set from that machine. So they will do a code checkout, and then the job will run this automation, like whatever commands we run manually, it will be done through a job.
Through Jenkins or
Yeah,
something.
Jenkins or like any CI/CD tool which we are using.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So now I'm going to apply this change. I'm skipping the plan, validate, and other things because the intention is to show you like how this one works and what happens. Okay. Let's quickly wait for this to finish. So after this, we'll go to the final section. Okay, where I'll show you like all other things. Okay. Anyways, this will be a quick one. So once this is done, I want to show you something. Like how you can. So right now we haven't touched the VM part and all. Like as you know, like all our demonstration, it was all with resource group, storage account, and VNet, right? I'll show you other code which I have already made, and how you can access your key vault. Let's say you are creating a VM, or let's say you're creating a database wherein you don't want to put all your credentials in your file, right? So that's not a good practice. So I'll show you like how you can access it from a key vault and how that data can be consumed. That is something which we'll see next. Okay. So this is created, and rest all the same process. I just want to show you like how this is getting created. And right now you can see our code is much more simpler. We have reduced a lot of things. Okay, that's the whole intention of having a module. And we also saw how you can put a reference. Let's say if you have multiple modules, like you have to expose, if you want to expose the data to a different block, you need to define this output block. Okay. Now, what I will do is Terraform destroy. Let this continue, and we will go to. Okay, probably I'll wait for this to finish so that we can. What I'm going to do is I will initialize this setup. Okay, while this is running, I will explain like what code, what is defined here, how it is written, so that you will get a better understanding. And there are a few things which is done differently, like what we have done so far, like the initializing of backend and all with the config file, which we saw in the documentation page, right? That is something I want to show you to you in this demo. Okay, the last one which we have here. I thought of, I mean, writing this whole thing in this session, but I thought like that might sound like, I mean, that's going to take a lot of time, right? So that's why I thought I'll make something upfront so that we can go through it and see other things, right? So that's the whole thing. And let me close all other things which we don't want. And yeah, just few more seconds. Okay, then we'll start it. So in Azure, okay, how many of you are familiar with this service, Bastion? Anyone?
Yes, Navin. Yes, Navin. Yeah, we are using this.
Okay. 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 How many of you don't know? Why I'm asking is we are going to use that service in the demo, so that's why I'm just asking. Yeah, it's like a jump server. Yes. So okay, Bastion is like It's like a jump server, okay, as Rajeshwaran told, but it's a managed service which Azure provides. Okay, you just have to deploy this resource in your VNet and in your region, and with that, without exposing, let's say you have a server without a public IP, right? This bastion internally will have a separate public IP using which I mean you can talk to the underlying machines which is not exposed to internet directly. So this will give you a separate interface using which you can connect and connect to the machine. Okay. Okay. What we will do now is I will go to this, and this time I'm going to do Terraform init, and I'm going to say backend config probably. Let's see if I have something already here, or that's fine. I think that should be fine. Let's initialize it. So now if you see, I have my configuration details in a separate file. Again, this file format can be of different format as well. I just named it like remote config.backend. But the intention is to show you, okay, we can also pass in details in a different way so that you don't have to put all the things here. Okay, if you see my, okay, there is a problem. It does not support the version this. Okay, okay. So if you see, okay, what is the, I mean, like anyone wants to guess like why this is happening? What is happening here? Any guess?
Issue with the
Not
issue with
support.
provider version.
Sorry, I cannot hear you.
No, issue with the provider version is not supporting by Terraform.
Right. So let's see Terraform version. Okay. So we have installed 1.13.1. Okay. But in this code, I have 1.12, which is why it's not working. Again, this version, right? So you can handle it. There are different operators also this supports. Okay, I can say greater than or equal to also. So initially we had 12.2, right? So I can do something like this also. So you can read more about this symbol. Okay, you can do greater than or equal to, or it supports few more parameters where you can just say I'm okay with the major version, but I'm so there are different releases. So 1.12 would be major, and 1.12.2 or 12.3 all would be like a small patch which they release. Okay. What it says is provider registry this does not have this thing. Okay, so now this is having a different error. Okay, so what I thought of showing you is probably let's do this thing. Okay, I don't know like if this is going to work, but I'll just see if we can do something different. But okay, first look at this error message. Okay, we have got rid of the other message, but read this error message. Like see if you can guess what is happening. Any guess?
I think because of we place greater than or equal to, it's not recognizing the required version. So we need to provide specific version, I think.
Okay. No, I think that's not the problem. Just look at this one. Okay, there is a chat message. There is a typo. Okay, yeah. So if you see, okay, this is a Azure RM, right? So it is trying to look for Azure R in a registry, terraform.io.registry, and it says it cannot find it. Okay, that's the problem here. So what we will do here is, okay, I know there is a problem, but let's assume we don't know. Okay, I have something called Terraform MCP server, okay, which is integrated to my VS Code. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask this agent. Okay, by the way, I'm not using Copilot; it is in agent mode. Okay, so I'm going to ask check my provider.tf file and see if everything looks fine. I'm asking the chat with the agent mode. I'm asking it to check my provider.tf. If you see, this is integrated and it is telling. Okay. And if you see, it says the file has no syntax errors, but there are few issues. So in this case, it has identified, okay, it is misspelled, it should be RM. And it is talking about all other things. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask, can you fix the misspelled portion? Let's see what this MCP can do. Okay. Now, if you see, it is going and modifying my code. Okay. If you see, it has added, I'll just say keep, and we have modified the code like this with help of this MCP. Okay. If you're using just Copilot, right, it can just read your code. Or if you're using any LLMs, like it will just look at your code and it can give suggestions. But if you integrate it with an MCP server, it can do, like if you're changing it to agentic mode, it can also go and do changes to your code. Okay, so that's what I just wanted to show with this. Like with this also you could troubleshoot. Okay, just to show you. So that is where all these agent comes into picture. Okay, so whatever you do with chat GPT and all, it's just like a tool, chat box which gives you a response based on the data which it is trained. Okay, but in case of, like, you would have heard terms like agentic AI and all. Okay, what they do is you will give life to that agentic AI by connecting an MCP server. Okay, the MCP server will have some set of instructions. Depending on what you ask, it's going to respond and it can take actions. Okay, that's what just happened now. Okay, this is just a small thing. So now we'll go on. Okay, so I'll just say clear and we will initialize this. So right now, this command I'm saying required version can be greater than or equal to this. So anything greater than this is also okay. In our case, it's 1.13, and I have given the backend configuration as for the container name as final and key as this Bastion SQL demo.tf, and it has initialized the backend. Okay, let's quickly go to our storage account and we will have a quick check. Let's go to the container and we should be seeing our file here. Okay, this is the our state file. Now I'll go and apply, or I'll do the plan first. Still, I haven't shown you the code, like what is inside that, what all components it's going to create. I want to first apply this. While this is going on, I want to, then we'll discuss about the code. Okay. The one key thing which I showed you, okay, building could not happen. The invalid credential. secret provider being sent. Okay, client secret ID. It talks about Azure RM line 24. Okay. Let's get this. It says there is a problem with the secret. We'll see. Okay. Okay, I also had this commented here so that I could make use of this. Okay, again we have to wait for this to come. Okay, building account unable to configure this thing. Subscription ID could not be defined. Okay, so what
No,
we will do is,
there is a providers you need to enable.
sorry,
Resource providers you need to enable that Terraform that I was something.
which line you're saying? Like in the same code?
Yeah, same thing only. The Azure portal need to enable the Terraform registry. Something, some register provider will be there. Resource providers.
Right,
Resource-
correct. Okay, wait. I'll just give this and then we'll check that one which you're saying. Okay. I think I got it, like which one you're referring, but we'll just try this once. So it says like it's not able to configure because I didn't supply the subscription ID. Okay. So let's see, because the previous configuration which I had, it was done through app registration. Okay, which I have done it with Entra ID, and you have something called app registration, and I have Terraform August 2025, and here there is a secret. Okay, so this secret is something I deleted it, so that's why it was not actually working. So what happened, like the earlier details what you saw here, right? So it was going to use that secret. Probably I'll see if I can do Control Z just to show you. Okay, this secret is something I deleted it. Okay, initially I had it, but if you see here, it is not having any secret. Okay, that's why it was failing. It was not able to make use of that secret. So now what I did, I just gave the subscription ID, which I know because I have done AZ login. Okay, and if I do AZ account show, this will show my subscription. So which is this one, which you see here. So earlier it was not using this what I have already logged in, since I was passing a secret, but it doesn't exist. It was throwing an error. Okay, but the one which you were saying is usually we enable that provider, right? In Azure portal, for each resource provider we have to enable sometimes if it is disabled. That's what you were referring, right? I think if I go to a subscription, you will see here. Where is that? This one. This is what you are saying, right?
Yeah, that's
Right.
what.
Yeah. So in our case, that was not the problem. So
Okay.
it is the ID. Yeah. Okay. Now there is something on the chat. Did you register Terraform install here? Not yet. Okay. Maybe I'll show you that also. Okay. We'll run this, then I'll show you that, because this thing, whatever we are going to apply, this will run for some time. At least 10 minutes is what I'm expecting. Once this is started, then we'll look at the code. I will also show you like how you can do that registration, which I was initially using, right? I'll show you that also. We'll just wait for this to start. Okay, it says dependency log file or anything is selected. Okay. Wait, we have to initialize this because I made changes here, and that's why it says like I have to do an upgrade before I do the apply. Okay, wait. Query the available provider package. Okay, I didn't change that. Okay, my bad. I did Control Z, and this also got changed. And this upgrade is something you do, okay, when you change the version of the providers and all. That's when you use it. Okay, now this is done. Let's apply. Start. I just want to see if it is starting creating that resource and all, so that I can peacefully discuss other things. It's the question. Okay, fine. It will start. So if you see, it's going to create about 11 resources, which we will see. Okay, let this run. And let's look at the code now. Okay, I'll go to the main.tf. So if you see, I have something called locals. I think this is something I didn't cover, but I'll probably tell you what this is. So we have seen variable blocks, right? This is similar to variable, but this, okay, it's actually failed. Stateful place in Terraform imported. Okay. It says the resource group which it is trying to create already exists. Maybe we'll delete it. All unexpected things are happening. At least the previous errors, I know it was expected. I wanted to show you how we can troubleshoot. But this one was unexpected. So, okay, we have deleted this resource group. What other things it is complaining? Wait, what is the, okay, it is the dev, that's what we have given, right? Okay. And this should not block. Okay. Now, okay, what I was saying is, okay, this is what we have. Okay, locals is something which you can define. This will be applicable only to this specific file, okay, where you're writing. Okay, so in this case, I have set the env as dev, which means it is going to create, I mean, if you see here, right, env name we are passing. Now, this is the RG module. Let's look at the RG module to see what is written. So here, if you see, I have multiple folders, okay? And let's go to the resource group module and let's look at this one. So if you see, our resource group is going to create something like dev-rg. Okay, since I had that resource group already, that's why it was failing. And location is something I have here. All these things are set in tags, but in the locals, I have this common tags. Okay, so if you see, env type is dev, owner is my name. Okay, and here I'm referring this env name is different. Okay, here env is dev, but env name also I have just named it as dev. I could have given a different name to avoid the confusion, but first is resource group. Okay, And this concatenation is something which we saw, like it's going to substitute our variable name here and -rg, and var location is something we have defined here. Again, if you remember, we need to reference this resource group details in other blocks. Okay, that's why we are exposing it in the output block. Now this is on the resource group side. Okay, next let's look at the vnet. If you look at vnet, I have a whole bunch of other things. Okay, so source is vnet folder, and this is the CIDR range which we have given, and env name is coming from module rg mod rg underscore name. Rg underscore name is something which we are exposing in the output block. Okay, so this is all something we have seen. Then similarly, location is also we are taking it from there. Tags, if you see, locals. Okay, one special thing about locals is when you are declaring here on the top, when you're defining, this will be termed as locals. You will have an S. Whereas if you call it inside your block, any of the block, it could be module or resource block, you will say local dot the block name. In this case, block name is common tags, and it is a map. Okay, key and a value. And tags is something which will have key and a value. That's why I have used that. And this will be, these two tags will be set for this resource and for this resource. Wherever you see tags set to common tags, this will be added. Okay, then I have a public subnet which is with this CIDR, and I also have a private subnet which is with this CIDR. And in Azure, for deploying a Bastion resource, you need to give us dedicated CIDR. Okay, though I think it needs 27 range, but I have given 24. Okay, as a CIDR range, but you need a separate subnet altogether. Okay, this is for the VNet. And if you go and look at the VNet module, this is what we have written. Okay, Azure Virtual Network. This is something we have seen. Then you have a separate resource for Azure subnet. Here I'm creating a private subnet and a public subnet. Okay, and my subnet name, if you see, okay, and if you see the VNet name, I'm just calling it based on the environment name. In this case, it's going to be dev. It will be dev-vnet, dev-private subnet, dev-public subnet. Okay, and then we are also passing on the CIDR block, okay, which you saw in the main.tf. Okay, these are the CIDR blocks which we are passing, and I am also exposing. Okay, before when I show that, for Bastion, this is a rule. Okay, if you are deploying a Bastion resource, this should be the constant name. You cannot give any other name for Bastion. Okay, that's the thumb rule. You cannot change. So that's why I've given that name. Then we are also creating a public IP. Okay, that's what you see here. And this public IP is named as Bastion public IP, and it is of SKU standard. Okay, standard SKU I have chosen. And then we are creating a network interface card. Okay, because this is something which you will be attaching it to a VM. So this is what we have defined in the virtual network. Next, if I go further on the code, we have a Bastion module which I have created. So if I go to the Bastion module, right, let's see what is defined there. So if you see, we have source, which you know, a location, env name is the resource group name which we give, and tags, public IP address. Okay, this is the public IP which we created in VNet. I am referencing here. Okay, if you see the virtual network block, okay, where is the VNet? Okay, here. If you see, we are exposing the public IP address ID, okay, which you will be referencing in the Bastion host. Okay, so if I go a little bit up, so this public IP is something you have to reference here. Here also I have this tags. Okay, and this is an IP address configuration, and which is common. Like if you go to the Bastion host documentation, you will get this. And variables, these are the different variables we need, and we are putting that. Then I'll go further on the main block. Then I'm creating a VM. Okay, and that VM needs some input. for example, the NIC card which we created in the VNet, that is something I'm attaching this to this VM. Okay, and there are other things which I have to supply, which is defined in this ENV, the resource group name and location. Now I'll show you the VM machine code. So if you see, this is the VM machine code where my VM name is going to come from the ENV type. So if you look at the consistency, so all our naming formats are prefixed with the ENV type. So it's a dev-SQL VM in this case, and resource group, and this is the size. In this case, okay, I have intentionally kept the VM username and password in a clear text format. Okay, but this is not something recommended. I will also show you in the same demo. Like I have other code where we will be fetching it from the Azure Key Vault. Okay, and here there's a network interface which we have to attach, because that's where you get the IP address, right, for your VM. And then there is a OS disk, all this configuration, right? This VM block, again, you will get it from the documentation. You know how to read the document now. What are the required fields and all, you will supply it. Okay, so in this case, if you remember, like we talked about images and all, I told you can query with the data block, right? Here I have hard coded, but if you want to query, you can have a separate data block, which can query the latest image and do it. But to keep it a little bit simple, I just did it like this, and this will be installing 2022 SQL Server with Windows Server 2022. Okay, and variables is again common, and I'm not exposing anything from the virtual machine because I don't need to. And then there is a separate resource called Azure SQL DB. Okay, so here, before touching the Azure SQL DB, okay, if you see Azure SQL DB, I have written here, but I told you we want to get some data from the key vault. Okay, so if you want to consume the data from a resource, you all know we have to have a data block as a reference. Okay, I will quickly go to my this thing, Azure portal. I have a key vault. Okay, I have a key vault saying Naveen-tf-vault. Now if you go to this code, we are referencing the key vault, okay, here, and I'm giving the resource group name. In order to read, okay, so this will expose the key vault details, but our secrets, which I have stored here, right? Let's go to this objects. This is the secret which I'll be using. Okay, this secret is available inside key vault secret. Without exposing this data, I cannot directly call this secret because this is having a key vault ID reference. Okay, that's why there is a two different data blocks. One for Azure Key Vault. Once the key vault data is exposed, I will be using that ID and referencing it. So with this, if I'm calling this block, right, Azure Key Vault secret dot SQL admin username or dot SQL admin password, this SQL admin username will give me the username, and SQL password will give me the password. Okay, so now what I'm doing is, here, if you see in this block, we are consuming the data. Okay, this will again have multiple data which gets exposed. Okay, and one of the thing is value. Okay, if you see, value is what we are calling. For username, it is SQL admin username. For the password, it is password. And if I have to show you the SQL DB code, this is what we have written. So it is like, what is the administrator login password, public access is true, and what is the database details, like what is the max size, tags, all those things are defined here, and all our code. So in real time, this whole module folder, right, it can be sitting somewhere in a remote location. Okay, and you will just have this piece of code with all the source location to your gate, wherever you have the code, and this is the code which you will just run to provision this whole setup. So what this is going to do is, maybe if I take a paint, so we'll quickly tell you like what this setup is going to look like. Okay, wait. So you have dev rg. Okay, and inside this you have a vnet. Okay, so that vnet is dev hyphen vnet, something like this. And this vnet will have 3 different subnets, or I think 2. Okay, I gave 3. Yeah, right. Three different subnets you have. Okay, one subnet is for Bastion, and I have one more subnet for naming it as public, and other one as private. Though I'm not using the okay, I think, yeah, we do have only one VM, right? Yeah, let's see on which VNet that is going. Let me quickly check. So if we go to the main.tf VM, okay, this is going to, okay, I don't know which one is reference. Let me check here. You will have, okay, it is a private. Okay, this VM, this network card is on the private subnet. So which means we are not making use of this public thing, but we just have a, I mean, VM which is sitting here. Okay, and this Bastion is also having a public IP. I'll just say public IP. So what will happen is, okay, once this is launched, you will hit the Azure portal. Okay, and with Bastion service, we will be accessing this VM. Okay, and this VM has some tools. Okay, in order to, and additionally, you also have something called I don't know which icon. Maybe I'll just use this one. So you also have Azure SQL DB, which is sitting in this resource group. Okay, so I'll just say AZDB. Okay, so what I can do is from this VM, I can access this Azure SQL DB. That's what this whole setup will do. It's going to provision this whole component for us. And if you see, this is done by the time I explain the whole thing. So most of the time is spent on Bastion, because Bastion usually takes time to spin up. So that's where most of the time we spend. And if I go to the resource group, right, we have the dev rg, and you will see all the resources. We deployed all these resources with the code which we have written. And now let's say I want to, let's say someone is asking, okay, all this is good, now I want to deploy the same for production. So we have the modules ready, right? So all I have to do is I'll just go and update my main.tf. Probably, let's say I take a separate copy, I'll just change this to prod. That's it. I don't have to sit and see like, okay, what all things I have to change. Prod, and I have to probably change the IP address side or not. And this one file, if I just run it, this is going to take care of doing the whole provisioning and complete the setup. Probably I'll show you by logging into VM once, like how the Bastion works. So this is the VM console. And if I go to Bastion, you'll see the dev rg Bastion, which we deployed. Okay. And I think since we have the username password in the VM code, I'll take it from there just to show you whatever setup we have done, it is working. I will use this, and let's take this password, connect. This will, okay, a pop-up is blocking. Okay, let's say, okay, hello. So now if you see, this VM is not having any public IP. Okay, it just have a private IP. With the help of Bastion, we have taken a secure connection, and we are able to log into the VM. And again, Bastion, like, it is based on browser, but if you want to take RDP or something only with private, you can also set up other things, like probably you can have a separate jump server, or you can do a VPN setup, etc. But just for this demo, it is like this, and this should log in to our server. And we also have a Azure SQL database, which is on the same resource group. Probably you will be able to see that resource as well here. Wait, not this one. There should be a separate one for okay, this is the one you see, right? This is the Azure SQL database, and this is our server name. Probably here. Okay, by the way, I think I forgot like what password I gave in the key vault. That's why like I cannot show you that part. But this is the SQL database, and this is the VM which we just provisioned. Any questions? This is the last thing I had to show. Yes, no, any questions? You like the demo, the last one which we did, where like we had multiple components and other things.
Yes, Navin.
Yes, no.
Awesome. So at least now you're able to get it right. If someone shows you a code, you will be able to see and understand what they are referring to and what it is. At least that point, at least right now. And once you practice, you will be in a much more better position. I think we also saw like a lot of errors, and that will also be helpful for you to troubleshoot. Okay, so if no questions on this, what I will do is for now, I will be stopping the recording alone. I'll show you other things. I think I told you like I'll show you the app registration part, right? That is something I'll show. But let me